Hey, this is Mike with Riding in the Ozarks, and today we are going to do an ST fairing on Firecracker's Sport Glide. Now, Advanblack has a great video of doing this on a different style Softail. It's not a Sport Glide, so this will be a little different if you've looked at that video already and you're trying to look for something. We're also going to be doing the Rockford Fosgate audio install, which was not in that video. So we may run into some different issues. We have different style bars. It's a different style bike. But hopefully we've got everything we need to make this success. So let's get started. Now this is a pretty big job. So we are going to have this broke up in different chapters. So if you're just looking for a particular piece, you're trying to do this yourself and you want to see how I'm doing something, check down below to see where the bookmarks are so you can skip around if you need to. Now, the Sport Glide has a different style fairing than the Lowrider ST. This is a quick detach. So we're going to get that out of the way and start taking the headlight apart. We will have to depin the wiring to get it through the housing and then get the housing off. And then this is going to have a totally different headlight. We're going from a 7" to a 5 3/4, but we do need to use that factory wiring harness still. The connector, as I understand it, won't pull through the headlight housing. So that's why the depin process to get it apart, get it through the housing, and then we'll put it back together. Now to remove the headlight on the Sport Glide, you're going to need a little screwdriver and a pair of needle nose pliers to get that beauty ring off the front of the headlight. And then you're going to need, I think it was a 9/16 socket and wrench to get the mounting bolt for the headlight loose. We'll take that all off next. Oh, and there's some Torx T20s in there holding the headlight to the mounting frame inside the bezel. All right, so we got the headlight off. Now in the video from Sick Baggers, the install that I watched on that, he had to depin the headlight on his. The housing on the Sport Glide's got a pretty big opening. We didn't have to depin our headlights, so that worked out really well for us. Now we have a new headlight from Advanblack because this does take a 5 3/4 and the Sport Glide comes with the 7" headlight, so we're not going to reuse the existing headlight. We're going to have a whole new headlight. And so we're just going to put all this stuff in a box labeled Takeoffs Sport Glide. The next step is to remove the front mounting bolt for the tank. This is a 5/16 hex. You'll need a 9/16 to hold the acorn nut on the other side. Break this loose, pull it all the way out. I always try and put these pieces back together till I need them so the washers and the nuts are together and we don't lose anything. We also have a little magnetic bolt pan over here we can use to keep stuff together. So on the tabs of the tank, there are some little rubber washers and spacers. We're going to take those off. We're also going to tilt the tank up. We might have to break the rear mounting bolt loose just so we can pivot that up easily because we're going to put the mount in and it's going to use this mounting hole as I understand it. All right, to loosen that rear tank bolt, we're going to have to move her seat. Now, depending on the style seat and how your bike is set up, you may or may not have to do that. She has a Saddleman seat and it kind of covers that bolt, so we're going to go ahead and pop that seat off, break that loose in the back so that we can pivot that tank up and get it kind of propped up out of the way. The painted parts have arrived. Yeah, the painter was dropping them off. All right, now we stuck a towel underneath the tank after we lifted it up to keep it up out of the way while we put this mount in next. All right, we got the tank propped up and all that, and we're getting ready to put the mounting bracket in, but before that, we're gonna go ahead and put some wiring extensions in here. So there is an extension with a little cable that tees off of it that goes to the headlight. There's also some Y cables for the turn signals. Now, we're going to do something a little different on this turn signal setup than what Advanblack's video from Sick Baggers does. He took the top turn signals off and run the extensions down, and he did the turn signals at the lower side of the fairing. Once we put the splitter in here, there'll be a pigtail that'll run out. We'll be able to connect that to the custom dynamics lights that I have in order. We don't have those today. Those will probably be a separate install, but we'll already have a connector in place to plug those into. So we'll have a turn signal in the fairing, and we'll have these turn signals up here on the bars. All right, that's a T27 right there that kind of retains the ABS brake line. So we're gonna loosen that up and get those out of the way. There's some wiring harness above that that we're gonna have to kind of scoot. And then we're gonna slide the mount back in there. And when you do the mount, you have to make sure that it goes in against the frame and you have all this wire out of the way. All the wiring has to be outside the mount. So you're going to go straight back through here, right down the side of the frame, and then it's going to go in there and replace those rubber washers that were on the tab of the tank. So it'll slide to the inside of the tank. All right, here's our Advan mounting bracket, and this is the end that goes in against the tank. This piece did not come assembled to the bracket on mine. I don't know if it's different for the Sport Glide than others, but it does go in here. You can see the two holes right there. So we're gonna get this up in here and get it mounted before we try and connect it to the bike. All right, now these are 10 millimeters. I went ahead and had to go get me a 10 millimeter. I'm using some thread locker on these just because this is a Harley Davidson and things vibrate on Harley Davidsons. I found some really good blue Loctite that's like a gel. I really like this stuff. I found it on Amazon, Esconki brand. I know it's a red ball, but it is blue Loctite. I even checked it out in the video to make sure, like they did a test against it and other Loctites, and it worked really well. It doesn't run all over the place and make a big mess as some of the other Loctite. And if you're new to Loctite, when you put it in, you just put a little dab on the threads and then put it in. As it goes through the threads, it'll spread down the bolt. You don't have to cover the threads. In fact, you don't want to put too much on, that just makes a mess. So usually I put a drop on and then thread it in and let it spread throughout the threads, and it'll set up nicely. I'm just gonna snug these kind of down. I don't want to over tighten them until I get everything lined up, and I do the other side as well. And it does kind of run down on its own. I don't get paid by the hour, so I'm not using power tools. I'm using hand tools. I don't have an electric wrench or electric impact that's designed for this kind of work with variable speed. I do have a drill impact, but I would much prefer to do this by hand. All right, we've got the mount installed, and the rubber tab or the rubber spacers that went over the tank tabs, we do not use. This goes on the outside of the tank tabs. Make sure you get all your wiring outside of this bracket. Nothing should be between the bracket and the frame. This lower mount down here pretty much sets against the neck down in here. You do want to make sure you get this lined up before you tighten it all down, torque it down real hard. This bolt that you go for the ABS line mount goes back through the mount. You need to make sure that's all centered up and you can get that started before you torque it down so everything's lined up good. Otherwise, you're going to be doing what we did and taking it back loose and fixing the alignment and then tightening it down. All right, so this is the mount on the inside of the inner fairing. You see these slots right here? They go down over these tabs. And then we'll screw some bolts through here to mount it. Now, as you can see on her Sport Glide, we already have a crash bar installed. She likes having a crash bar. Sometimes we put soft lowers on it. It also gives her another place to put her feet if she wants to when she's touring. So we are doing a slightly different install than the standard Lowrider ST. The standard install has a bracket that comes across from here and comes up to the fairing. In this case, we bought support brackets for crash bars that will connect the crash bar to the ST fairing. The bracket will go on the inside of this, and we'll put a bolt from the outside of the inner fairing through into that bracket. Now, we're not putting the bottom on tight yet. We'll do that probably after we get everything kind of lined up. But from a friend who converted from the stock Lowrider ST support bar to crash bars, he highly recommended that you measure from the frame to here and make sure you have them equal on each side. First time he did it, they weren't quite equal, and he felt like when the bike, when he'd let off and coast a little bit, or if he let go of the handlebars, it would try and drift to one side or the other. So you'll make sure this is all squared up because that's going to change the way the wind flows against this fairing once you get the outer fairing on it. We ordered the 5 3/4 headlight from Advanblack. You know, really appreciate them helping us out with this. They did give us the unpainted fairing for this project because we needed one unpainted for custom paint, as you will see obviously. Everybody in the videos and stuff talked about how it had to be this headlight, which has mounting holes for 4 bolts in the center and stuff because you need them for the ring. And if you look at the video from Sick Baggers, that's what they're showing with theirs. Theirs is a different headlight mount. So what we got from Advanblack with this setup for the Sport Glide is a totally different headlight trim mount. This is going to mount around the outer edge of the headlight, and then these 2 bolts will mount this to the outer fairing. I'll show you that in just a second. But apparently we did not have to have the headlight with the 4 bolts, but it is going to have the right dimensions to clamp down inside this ring. So I don't know if other headlights would work or not. We just got the one from Advanblack that we knew would work for this setup. So the notch will go over there on that side so that when you put the headlight in, the DOT is at the top of the headlight and it mounts correctly and everything will project right and your high beam and low beam will be orientated in the frame correctly. Okay, so the headlight mounting bracket had bolts on each side right here, 4 of them total. Taking them out, we're gonna get some blue Loctite on them. Then after we slide in, those bolts will go through this bracket and back into the headlight and tighten it up. This is slotted so we can get some vertical adjustment in the headlight if we need to. Now, because we're going to go ahead and do Rockford Fosgate audio, the next step for us is to pull this inner fairing. This was painted to match. If for some reason we decided we didn't want the Rockford Fosgate audio, we already have the inner fairing painted to match the rest of the fairing. So, I mean, while they were shooting the paint, it was no big deal, but these are just little spring clips here. You pop these loose and kind of push, and then you can get that loose. Firecrackers already popped them all loose, and off it comes. Now, the Rockford Fosgate audio from Harley Davidson is something, as far as I know, you cannot buy it anywhere else at this time but from Harley. When they first came out with it, it was VIN locked only for people that own lowrider STs. Now, you can buy it and use it with any of these other Dynas or other Softails that you put an ST fairing on. We picked ours up from Renegade Harley Davidson, and we're gonna mount this next, and we're probably gonna go ahead and do some of the wiring. I did not buy the wiring harness kit from Advanblack. It's $99. I didn't realize till after we had all this kind of here that they sold one, but I think I can wire this up. Now, the instructions that come with this audio kit talk about wiring it into the main harness and stuff. We're gonna try something a little different. It comes with this cable that splices in between your headlight plug-ins and stuff. So we'll get that stuff all plugged in, but there's also this wire. According to the instructions, this wire goes into your main wiring harness. I'm sure that's for a lowrider ST. We don't have a plug like that. All right, it requires 4 arms, 3 people, and somebody with some intelligence, but you basically need to wire this to the battery. We didn't get the Advanblack wiring harness, but in that they have a wire that they wire back to the battery. So with the Harley wiring harness, they want you to go into a plug up in here on the lowrider ST that we don't have. And then they want you to come into another plug back here and tie it to the battery with the Harley factory wiring harness. We don't have any of that either because this is a Sport Glide. And we don't have the Advanblack one, so we made one. I bought a wire that is designed to be for a battery tender type connection that has a fuse in it. So we have a fuse right here, 20 amp. One end is got a terminal on it. It's like a 3-foot extension of a battery tender or 3-foot long cable, and we just cut the battery tender plug off the end of it, routed it underneath through the frame here up along this wiring path, and we come out right up here by the ABS brake lines. And then what I'll do is I will connect that to that wire, and that is going to provide us with power for this system. We've already tested it before we ran the wire to make sure, but I didn't think you guys wanted to watch all that. So we'll make a butt connection here, and then we'll get this thing mounted up and it'll be ready to go. All right guys, I can't really do this and hold the camera, but I bought these little butt connectors that has solder in them, and they're shrink wrap all in one. So it's maybe a little hard to see, but I took that plug that comes off the factory connection and I ran it into this butt connector, and the wire we've run from the battery forward to the other side of the butt connector, and then heated it all up with a little mini heat gun, and it melted that solder, made that connection, and shrink wrapped that. We're going to put some black electrical tape over it as well, just to be on the safe side, kind of help protect that area, and then get her tucked up and get the outer fairing on. All right, we got the seat back on, put the tank back in place, tightened it all up. Outer fairing is on. Now there's a rubber gasket here that's just like a double stick tape that we fitted in here. We're getting ready to put the windshield on next. It's looking pretty good so far. Then there's a beauty ring that we'll put in here as well that'll help hide this headlight mount. To secure the outer fairing after you get it in place, you have a bolt up here, one back here, and then down here you have one that also has this little wind deflector in here. All right, we've got the windshield on. Now one thing you have to make sure you do is there were some retaining clips on the back side of this and the fairing. Because we're doing the audio and we're not using an inner fairing, those had to come off so that these bolts on the lower part of this can go all the way into the Rockford Fosgate audio. These windshield bolts actually go through the outer fairing and into the audio system, so they help hold all this in place as well. We're going to go ahead and put this beauty ring in around the headlight here, and then get those bottom bolts mounted on, clean this thing up and see how it looks. As I mentioned, on these lower fairing bolts, make sure you have this evenly spaced from the frame or from some reference point, this center bolt or something like that, so it's even on both sides. Now I mentioned this beauty ring earlier in the video. This simply gets in place and then twists to lock in. So that's what it looks like with the painted beauty ring to match. All right guys, that makes the Sport Glide ST build complete. We've got audio in it, we've got the fairing on it. She has done a small test run. We had some wheel bearing issues, so she's only got about 80 miles on it. She will do a full review on her channel on Firecracker on 2 Wheels. I'll leave a link to her channel in the description down below as well. So if you want to see her review after spending a couple of months on this bike, what she thinks of the fairing, what she thinks of the audio, all that kind of stuff, make sure you subscribe to her channel. We've been doing some other upgrades on the Sport Glide, so if you're into Sport Glide content, make sure you're subscribed for that as well. Y'all stay safe, keep on riding. We'll see you in the next one.